All right, guys, I'm gonna show you how to set a window properly right now. So this is Braxton. Hey, Braxton. And he's gonna be my camera guy. So anyways, why don't you hold that, Brax? So what you do is I usually use Fortiflash, but this is a different material, but it's similar. I mean, you could use any of this stuff. It's got a sticky back on one side and it's kind of rubbery on the front end, right? So like I told you guys, I always forget to take pictures and do this the right way, but I haven't said it yet, so I can explain it to you. So what you do is I usually will run it up about 3 inches up the side on the bottom, and I'll run it all the way across, and then same thing on this edge, 3 inches up or so, and then I'll cut it. And as you can see, then what I do is I'll put a little slit in it right here, and I'll kind of fold it flat where it rolls over the edge here, and then I'll tuck it up. Okay, so you start with your bottom piece, and then you go with your sides over the top of it. And as you can see what I did, so if you think about it, a side will look like that, right? So you have to slit that too, and you could really cut it either direction, but you just want to cut it where you could fold it over. And what you're thinking about is water that's running down this window, right? So you just want to make sure no moisture can get in anywhere. And if you mess up, you know, you can tear this stuff off and start over. But so that's how you do a window before you set it. And you always want to make sure, as you can see here, I got the Fortiflash material over my felt paper, right? So any moisture that gets in the window, because they build condensation up as the heat changes, you want that moisture to be able to roll down and get out of your building, right? In between your siding and your felt paper. So that's how you do it. And like I said, then you go up the sides and you leave the top just bare wood. And the reason for that is when you go and set your window, which I'll show you guys how to do that right now. So what you do is you figure out what's the front and the back of your window, and always take, well, first thing I'll do, if you look right here on these corners, I trim them down because there's a little ledge on them, and I'll always trim them down real nice and flush where there isn't a ledge. Like here, if you look at this one, it's kind of raised up. This is on the inside, so it doesn't matter. And the reason that you're doing this is when you go to trim out these windows, you want everything nice and tight and look nice, right? Because you have these little screws here that'll kind of hold your trim out. You kind of got a notch around those. But anyways, so what you're doing is you're just cleaning all the edges up around the window. Then what you do is you find the inside of your window, and you take some caulking, which there's all sorts of different brands of caulking. Just want some waterproof stuff. I use Volcom, but like I said, there's a bunch of different brands. And then what you'll do is you'll find the bottom of your window. And the way that you find the bottom of your window is there's weep holes on a window, right? So any moisture that gets inside of a window at the bottom of it can run out. And that's what these weep holes are here. And so that's the bottom of your window, and this is the outside of your window. So on the inside of your window, what you'll do is you'll take and run a bead of caulking, and I'm not light on this bead either. As you can see, I'll run a nice bead and I'll go right over those nail holes, okay? As you can see. And so what you want to do is you want to run a bead of caulking down the top edge and both sides, but not on the bottom. And the reason for that is any moisture that builds up in here, what it'll do is it'll run down the edge of your window, right? And so what you want to do is you want it to be able to run out. So that's why you don't caulk the bottom of it, because then the water can get out and it doesn't rot or get inside of your wall there. And so I'll just stop right there. See how I missed a little bit on that hole? So I'll just go ahead and fill that in, and it's a little light there, so I'll give myself a little extra there. Same thing on this end. I'll come all the way down this side. And it's kind of a messy process when you do this right, because it's kind of hard to grab a hold of these and set them now that you got all this caulking on it. I could typically do it because I've set so many of them and stay out of getting a mess, but almost everybody I do this with will end up pretty messy. Anyways, since this is a smaller window, I could do it by myself. So then what you do, like I said, I didn't caulk the bottom. So then you pick your window up, always put it in the bottom first. And then you just set it right in there where it goes. Will you grab me that level, Braxton? Okay. So, and then the other thing you want to do when you set a window is you want to make sure it's all level. Okay. So, and the other thing, you know, I didn't run any of my FortiFlash on the top, and the reason for that is you want that caulking to bond right to your plywood in case for any reason any moisture ever was to get in behind your paper. It can't get in through your window. It bonds it right to the plywood up there. So then what you'll do is check it for level, and this thing is pretty close, just right where it's at. Right there, it needs to shift a little bit. So see that little black box of roofing nails there? So what you want to do is use some roofing nails to nail a window in, because they have a big fat head on them, and these are 1.5 inches, so they're longer nails with a big fat head. Okay, they look like that. So anyways, what you'll do, it doesn't really matter where you start. I guess it does, it depends on the level. Typically you'll have more than one person helping you with this, so somebody could be holding it. But so what I'll do is I'll start on the bottom here, because I know that the window needs to tilt over a little that way. And then I'll just drive it in. Okay, so as you can see, it mushes out some of that caulking. Well, what you want to do, recheck it for level, and this thing is basically dead on where it's at, so I'm not worried about it. But then what you'll do is every other nail, you'll nail it, right? And on the bottom, I typically don't put too many nails, because you know, you don't want a hole where any moisture could be coming out. The bigger the window, you know, kind of depends on the nails, but like in this small section of window, I would just put one single one in the middle of it, because you already have one on both ends, so one single one in the middle of it will do good. And then, you know, it'll be right where you want it to go. So like I said, every other hole. And you want to make sure you're getting into some meat when you nail these in. And so if for some reason the framing is too big or something, you always want to check that before you get going. But let's say I'm not hitting anything right there. What you can also do is you could take this nail and you can make your own hole if you need to scoot out a little bit and just drive a hole wherever. Or you can also go right on the outside edge of it, and it'll just be holding it you know, on the outside edge of it. I actually have enough meat there, so I'm not worried about it. So I'm just using the holes that are already there. And you just work your way around it. You want to be careful not to hit the edge of your window or obviously the glass when you're tapping these in. Okay, I'll probably just come down to here. So like here, I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So, you know, there isn't a hole right here, but I'm just gonna go ahead and make me one. Okay. And then, like I said, I'll set one right in the center of this thing down low here just to hold it in place. I don't want to put many holes because there is going to be a little moisture coming down through there. It's like I said, what happens is in between your window here, a little bit of moisture will get in. Even if you caulk along this edge where the trim is at, caulking fails, so moisture is able to get in and it comes down through here and drains out. Like I said, these weep holes, moisture comes out of them because any moisture that gets caught inside your window here, there's a little tray down in here and it'll come out right there. So that's how you do that. And then your next step, when you go to finish these windows out, you take this same material, whatever brand you got, and you do your sides first. Okay, so you can measure it, but just a little easier for me to run it down like that. And you go right over the top of the course that you put on here already. So, like here, for instance, stuff's pretty sticky too, so you got to be careful. You don't want it to touch itself, or else it's basically ruined. So you'll just peel a little piece off at a time, okay? So like here, I go right up tight to my window, okay? As you can see, right up tight to my window and overlap everything. And as you can see, no moisture is gonna get in there like that. It can't get behind it. And then you just work your way down it. All the way to the bottom. And you're overlapping that whole flange with your material. And so what you do is you do that on both sides and across the top. And then your window is set. You always want to put some staples in it to hold it. Especially if you're doing multiple windows, then you can't get back to trimming them. So same thing, I'll do it on this side. upside down it. Okay, and then like I said, so the difference here, now I'll go one across the top. And what that does is protect that top edge. And I'll show you guys even how to trim this thing out. So, actually, let me get on that ladder. I can see what I'm doing, Bryson. Once you get on that side of it, so always go down nice and tight to that window down here, and then try to keep a nice straight edge running across it. Looks like I got up a little there, but it'll be all right. Just like that. You just go right across it. And now you can see how you set a window. Okay. So why don't you got that turned off? So I'm gonna trim this window out for you guys now and show you how to do it. So what you want to do is you want to start with your bottom piece of trim. And so what I'll do is I'll just measure the bottom of the window. And right here I have 29.5 inches. Okay, and then when you go to trim a window out, you see you got your flange, right? So on the back of your trim, you want to notch it out for that flange so it sits flat, because you want your trim to be nice and flat all around it. So I'll show you guys how to do that. Come over here. So right here, watch, come show these guys. So always when you're doing trim, you want to take a square and check the edge. So what you could do is you could just feel down it or look down it and make sure it's nice and square, and this piece is. You always want square ends, okay? So, and then I always look at my board and make sure there's no dings or imperfections in it anywhere, because whatever you put up is going to be final product here. So then I'll cut my mark. What I do is always keep a nice sharp pencil so I know right exactly where it needs to be, and then I'll leave my line, because that's right where I need this board to be, where that line is. Will you come hold this board up on this side, Braxton? Okay. Got it? Okay. So, once I cut it, like I was saying, you need to notch out the back. So, the front of your board is always the side that has texture to it, has a rougher look, and the back is nice and smooth. So what you want to do, like I was telling you, is I'll measure up 1.25 inches, and that's my blade depth here, and then I run it almost touching my guard, so that way it rips out the back just perfect. And I'll show you guys here what I'm talking about. And so also I'll look at my board and decide what edge I want to be up and down. And on this one, it doesn't matter because it's a nice board. That's what you're looking for. You want your board notched out just like that, where that flange sits like that. Okay, now I'll show you guys over here. So why don't you come over here, Braxton, so you can see it. What I'm talking about. So, if you look right here with your trim, see my notch and see the flange of the window? See how it sets nice and flat against the wall? And then right where that flange is, I have a little space under it. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying it sets flat. So what you'll do is you'll flush up the edge on both sides, double check it, and make sure you got a good edge there. And then you're good to go. So what I'll do is I'll take my caulking and I'll run a bead right up against this edge here. And what that does is keep any moisture from getting in on the back. And then what you want to do is you want to take some stainless ring shank nails so they don't rust and nail this trim on with them. So what I do with that, why don't you show them the face here, Braxton? So on the face of your board, you want to scoot in. You don't want to nail right on the edge. See, Bandit? We all know you want to show them how to do it. So what I typically do is I'll look at my board and I'll decide where I want to put these nails. Water's running out right down these weep holes, so I'll scoot in even from them. I make sure I'm tight to the bottom, flush to both sides, and then I'll nail them in. And once you get one nail, it will hold it somewhat for you. And then same thing on the other side. And so I don't like nailing boards out on the ends because that's how they could split if you put them too close on the ends. So I always like coming in, 2 to 3 inches inside the edge. And you want to be careful when you're nailing trim that you don't beat it up, because this is all finished product here. Once it's painted, it's good to go. So I'll put 2 nails on each end, and that should do on a short little run like this. Just like that. Then you do your sides. So what I'll do there is I'll hook the top of the window and I'll pull all the way down to the bottom edge of my board. 51 and a 16. And I'll check both sides. They should be the same. Yep. 51 and a 16. And I'll do the same on them. Okay, you can turn that off. Want to run a bead of caulking right down that edge. Okay. Then what you want to do is you want to look on your window. See right here how there's some screws that are in that edge right there? Sometimes those screws will be poking out and pushing it. Is you want your trim to be nice and tight up against your window. You don't want a big gap. So you want to keep an eye on that. Sometimes you'll have to notch it. On this one it looks like I'll be all right. So then you want to be flush to the top of your window and flush to the bottom of your trim. This one looks like I'm a little bit long. So I'm gonna have to go cut this thing. It's always best to check it before you put the caulking on it. That way you don't get a mess like I got going here, but it's just life. You end up getting this stuff on places you don't want it, but it'll come right off. You just gotta kind of work it off of there, clean it up. So anyways, once you got it nice and flush to the top and bottom, and you'll do the same thing, just go ahead and nail it. And like I said, I'll keep 2 to 3 inches off the edge. So what I'll typically do is set one nail like that and then double check it. And if you need to adjust it a little, all you gotta do is just tap on it. With only one nail in there, it'll move on you a little. So, like that, I readjusted it. And then on a longer board like this, what I'll do is I'll also put 2 right in the middle. And you know where the middle is, because that's where your center of your window is. And then same thing at the bottom. And see how I got a little gap here? I can push it tight and it'll suck it right up. That's what you want. You want a nice tight flush on top and bottom, just perfect. And that's what notching out the back does. It makes it where it's just perfect. Otherwise, you'll have it kinked up and it won't look nice. And then I'll just copy and paste on this other side. That's good. So as you could see how these 2 trim pieces don't match up once I stick them up here? So what you want to do is before you nail this on, you want to take a little piece of cedar shim or any kind of shim and drive it down behind this thing to get that where it's nice and flushed up. Is this what I'm talking about? You always want your trim nice and flush. And it gets most of the way there, but it's still got a little to go. See, on this side, it's not near as bad. So anyways, that's how that works. And as you can see, there's still plenty of FortiFlash up above this. And so what I'm gonna do now is you always have to have a piece of flashing made for on top of your windows, because moisture can get in right through up on this edge too, behind your windows. And so that's why we put flashing there. So I'm gonna make a piece of flashing and show you guys how to do that. Okay, so when you go to custom make this flashing, what you wanna do is you take down both edges and you cut about 3/8 inch in on both sides there. And then what you want to do is you take a little pair of pliers and you fold this front edge in, and then you fold the top edge over. And if you don't cut it exactly right, like I just did, then it doesn't match up exactly. So what I'll do is I'll take and notch it like that. Okay, so what you're thinking of is water's gonna be up here, right? And you want it to roll off that edge and not go inside there. So once you do that, that's your first edge. Then so what I'll do is I'll put my trim on it. And so I know what length I'm looking for. You can also measure this, but I could do it like this because I've done enough of them. And I'll mark my next side. And then I'll cut it all the way through, top and bottom. Then I'll fold it a couple times to break it there, and then same thing on this edge. I think I cut it just a little bit shorter than I should have. So same thing, you'll fold the front edge over, the top edge down, and you'll have your piece of flashing. Then what I do always, before I get up there, I'll double check it. See, like here, I made it a little bit snug, but that's pretty easy to fix. You just kind of work it on there. See, kind of work it on there, and then once it's laying on something solid like this, you could kind of tap it where it goes. And then as you see, I got a perfect piece of custom made flashing, stainless, because here at the beach it'll eat up any other metal, and that's your top piece. And I'll always make it before I put anything on, so I know it's good and everything's gonna fit right. So then once I have that, I'll come back to my window. Same thing. I'll put a bead of caulking all the way across the back edge. Just like that. I put my shim on it so it pops it out. Flush up my edges. And I'm good to go. And then all you got to do is nail it on there. Same thing all the way around. You don't want to put your nails too close to the edge or it'll split your board. Oops. Dang it. See how nice and flush all that is? Like I was telling you guys, that's what you're shooting for. Center on my window, I'll put another couple nails there. I like to stagger my nails where they're not in a straight line, two in the centers. And then, what you'll do is you nail this flashing down also. So, same thing, you want it cocking against the back edge. Just like that. Put your flashing back on. And then you use your stainless nails to fasten that on. So what you want to do on these is these nails bend really easy, so you'll do some quick short taps. To keep from bending it. And I'll put same thing, 3 nails across it. And that'll hold it down all the way across there. If I could get away with putting that one bent on me. There you go. So now, still recording. So the final step to this window is papering this top section here. As you can tell, I got my flashing, I got my Porta-Flash behind it. And now I just need my last course of felt. So I have it cut here. And that's what it's gonna look like. You leave a little gap above your flashing. It doesn't need to go all the way down tight so it can breathe. And then you just want to go all the way up tight to your board. And you want to overlap both edges. Sorry about that. So I'll need to scoot it this way a little bit, but that's how that works.